Is Orlando getting a professional baseball team? I'm Phil Kruse, and welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle. What do a $1 billion attorney, a Hall of Fame shortstop, and a legendary sports promoter have in common? They're betting big on Orlando becoming Major League Baseball's next great city. And they just raised 2.5 billion with a B dollars to prove it. In this episode, we'll discuss what are Orlando's chances of landing a Major League Baseball team, who are the major players pushing for this, and how are they doing it, and how might this change the look of iDrive and surrounding real estate forever. But before we get to all that, I am a real estate agent, and one of my main lead sources are listeners like you. So when it's your time to make a major real estate decision, or your friend or family member's time, think of me or tell them of me, Phil Kruse. That's Kruse with a K, Kruse. A portion of all my real estate commissions go to charity, either a charity of your choosing or to the New Image Youth Center, where I volunteer every single Wednesday. And follow me on all my social media platforms. I'm extremely active on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, all the socials, right? Again, search Phil Kruse, Kruse with a K, and like and subscribe to me on YouTube if you're watching there, or listening on Spotify or podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and turn on your notifications. I drop new episodes every Monday, chock full of amazing content, interviews with local business leaders and philanthropists, updates about what's going on in our great city of Orlando, like I'm doing now, and of course, real estate centric episodes as well. Now, imagine it's 1990 and you're watching Saved by the Bell. While someone in Orlando is trying to bring Major League Baseball here. But without a stadium or a strong financial pitch, we lost out to cities like Miami and Denver. Fast forward 30 years, and the Orlando Dreamers are rewriting that script with $2.5 billion pledged and an MLB Hall of Famer leading the way. So back in 1990, we had a minor league team that was affiliated with the Minnesota Twins, and there was a lot of momentum at that time to get us into Major League Baseball. It took about 3 years for that process to suss out, and in 1993, we lost. Florida lost. Well, Orlando lost, and the Florida team they picked was the Florida Marlins, now the Miami Marlins. But here we are, trying hard again. Now it's really front and center because one of the nation's largest lawyers, well, the nation's largest law firm, you can't miss it driving through Orlando looking at the billboards, John Morgan has just pledged $250 million to be one of the main stakeholders in any Major League Baseball team that comes to Orlando. His personal estimated net worth is $1.5 billion. So apparently he can afford the $250 million. And Pat Williams, who we'll get more to Pat later, Pat coined the potential team name of Orlando Dreamers. Okay, so that's potentially going to be our team name. It's a perfect name for Orlando. Think about the Orlando Magic, dreaming of big dreams. Tourists come here dreaming of Disney and spending their vacations and with their families. And Orlando as a city has big dreams of continuing to expand. I think we're the biggest city in the United States, and Orlando Dreamers are a big part of that. So, but we basically have 2.5 billion with a B already raised, due in large part thanks to John Morgan's recent contribution. 1.5 billion of that is simply to buy an MLB franchise, Major League Baseball MLB franchise. And another 1 billion of that is to build a stadium. But where? In the perfect spot on iDrive. Apparently, John Morgan owns a lot of property on iDrive. So you might want to understand a little bit better why he wants to get involved in a Major League Baseball franchise that's going to build a stadium near all his investment properties. A recent quote that was in the Orlando Business Journal reads as, "It's not about the love of baseball. It's about the love of money." Well, this is a capitalist society after all. And you know what? John Morgan helped legal or medically legalize marijuana here in the state of Florida. So, hey, what can you do? Seems like he's going to get things done. And he's not wrong. Look, about the money aspect, the Rays, which is right there in Tampa, okay, which is the franchise that we have our eyes on the most and potentially could be an Orlando baseball franchise, will change the name potentially. They were estimated to be worth $200 million as a franchise back in 2004. Now, 20 years later, it was Forbes released that they're now estimated as a franchise as $1.25 billion. Okay, that's over a 500% increase. So John Morgan knows that if you invest in a franchise, a sports franchise, if you can afford it, it's going to have a hell of an ROI. But anyway, back to iDrive. Have you been there recently? International Drive. In case you need a reminder, it has the world's largest McDonald's and it's filled with tourists every day of the year. The city of Orlando and Orange County has already earmarked a 35.5-acre site. So that's a very large 35-acre site next to SeaWorld and next to the Orange County Convention Center. Talk about a perfect spot for tourists to see our stadium when they're visiting one of our great theme parks or checking out the convention center. And look, that area is already build ready. When we talk about stadiums that get built in and around major metropolitan cities, look at the Orlando City Soccer Stadium, right? It impacted a low-income neighborhood. There was all kinds of annexation happening by the city and low-income people getting pushed out. Same thing happened with the Amway, and it happens all over the country. And historically, it's a terrible thing that's happened. But we don't have that issue in Orlando because we already have land. Orlando has so much land. Orlando's airport has so much land. This is one of the reasons we're able to continue to grow and expand at a very fast pace. And this is just another example of that. So the iDrive corridor could evolve into a true sports entertainment district. You already got so many sports teams that come to the convention center for things like volleyball tournaments and cheerleading tournaments and stuff. And now you could have a $1 billion state-of-the-art baseball facility, and not just a stadium, a whole complex. We have 80 million tourists, more than 80 million tourists, because that number is from 2023, coming here every year. And many of them are from up north, where baseball is much more popular. So you can imagine a family being able to catch a game while they're in Orlando, whether just because they're baseball fans or because their team is playing here. If you're a Yankees fan, if you're a Boston Red Sox fan, if you're a Chicago White Sox fan, well, no, he's a White Sox fan, right? A Cubs fan, maybe. People could do their travel plans based around a team. Like if you're coming here during baseball season, you're already planning on coming. It's like, hey, you know what? Let's go this weekend because the Cubs are playing. Might as well check them out. But who is really driving the bus on bringing a Major League Baseball franchise to Orlando anyway, and to iDrive? Now, I mentioned Pat Williams. I didn't want to dive into him, but he is an amazing, I didn't want to dive into him earlier, but he is an amazing and inspirational figure that is all Orlando. Imagine a man that is so dedicated to bringing Major League Baseball to Orlando that he started walking around with a cane shaped as a baseball bat. This is a true story. Now, Pat Williams co-founded the Orlando Magic. So he's got a lot of clout in the city. And he was, if you go back and look at the story of him helping bring a NBA franchise to Orlando, it's huge. It was all him making it happen and him putting the right people together. He might be the one person in this whole world that's a bigger Orlando advocate than me. And one of his many visions for the Dreamers, right, which is going to be our team, and he's the one who coined that team name, right? He came up with that name, was having a tourist-powered team where tourists from around the country, like I mentioned, would come to watch games as an additional thing to do whenever they're in Orlando. So that's Pat's vision, and it might be coming to fruition. He envisioned iDrive as the next Battery Park, which is an area in Atlanta, in Cobb County, outside of Atlanta, that it is an uber successful baseball stadium complex. So it's a perfect example of something that was recently built. It was built in 2017. Turner Field, if you're an Atlanta Braves fan, you know it well, as an iconic stadium, iconic baseball field. Got rid of it. They moved it and built this whole complex. In the first 3 years of it being open, so from 2017 to 2020, real estate prices went up as high as 30% in the surrounding areas. And it's not just a baseball field. It has 2.25 million square feet. Can you even imagine that? 2.25 million square feet of mixed-use facilities. So, you're talking commercial, you're talking restaurants, nightlife, cultural centers, businesses, rental, all, apartments. And real estate numbers show that single-family homes in and around that area, within a 5-mile radius, so a pretty large radius, went up in prices, and a higher demand, due in large part reported by the buyers to the proximity to such an amazing cultural center, where it's not just about going to see a baseball stadium, but you have an amazing place to go with your friends and family to enjoy the city's culture and nightlife. So we're pushing this already, this paradigm, right? This sports complex paradigm is something that's going on all over the country and is successful in many other places. We're doing it in downtown Orlando already. We're starting construction on the West Court area right next to the Kia Center. I did a podcast about downtown Orlando's booming development to the tune of over $400 million. And the West Court facility is a huge part of that. So the Amway Center, or now the Kia Center, is going to be not just a basketball arena and a music venue, but you're going to have mixed use space, hotels, apartments, a park, a music venue, all this stuff. And that's what we're going to try and emulate with the Orlando Dreamers baseball diamond. Let's keep imagining, right? We have Disney, we have Universal. What if they got behind us and they became corporate sponsors or somehow became affiliated with the Orlando Dreamers? That could be huge. Maybe our mascot's Mickey. I don't know. We got enough Mickey, maybe. I-4 could become a true sports corridor in our region, linking the Dreamers and the sports complex there on I-Drive to downtown Orlando and the Orlando Magic and what's going on at the West Court facility. So now you're talking about some synergy, finally, again, between our tourism and our real Orlando, as I like to call it, in downtown. It used to happen back in the 80s and early 90s there on City Walk. Tourists would come from Disney. They would come into downtown. They never do that anymore. When they come to visit Disney, they seem to just stay at Disney. But when we can get I-Drive, which is obviously north of Disney, near Universal, they're coming there to see baseball. Now they're going to make the next hop over to West Court and into downtown. If we can keep revitalizing downtown and turn it into a place that tourists and locals actually want to come. So how can the Orlando Dreamers baseball team become a reality? How are we going to make this happen? Lucky for Orlando, the city of Tampa can't get their act together. All right. The Trop, or Tropicana Field, isn't even in Tampa. So the Tampa Bay Rays, used to be the Devil Rays, Tampa Bay Rays play in St. Pete. So if you're a Tampa person, you live in Tampa and you want to go see the game, you got to drive an hour with traffic over to St. Pete to an old, crappy, dilapidated dome. If you've ever been there to watch a UCF bowl game like I have, it's not in great shape. And it got recently storm damaged from the hurricanes. And it just needs a lot of updating. The Rays lease ends there in 2028. So as of this recording, it's May of 2025. In 3 years, the Rays lease will be up, and maybe they'll have already signed a deal with the city of Orlando to move the franchise over here. The city of Tampa knows they need to do something. Major League Baseball knows they need to do something, but they cannot figure it out. Tampa just doesn't have the land that we have. They don't have the tourist infrastructure that we have. So they don't have a good place to put the stadium. They were talking about putting it in Old Town Tampa, which is Ybor City. There's just so many issues with doing that. It's a historical area. You got to knock down oodles and oodles of buildings and displaced businesses and residents. And they've been trying. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. And Orlando isn't locked by a coastline. Tampa is great because it's got not really beaches, but it's got coastline. It's got the Port of Tampa. It's got Tampa Bay. It has a lot, and Bayshore there is gorgeous, but that limits its growth potential. Orlando is open on all sides, north, south, east, and west, and we have room to expand. Let's go. So Pat Williams, I mentioned him a couple times now, such an influential fixture to Orlando sports history. He did pass last year in 2024, and it was a major loss for us. So who's going to continue to drive the bus, right, to get a Major League Baseball franchise here, get the Dreamers here and make it a reality? Well, there's a gentleman named Barry Larkin who's lived in Orlando for a long time. Who the heck is this guy? Well, he's a World Series champion. He was a long-time Cincinnati Red shortstop, won the World Series, and he's so good, he's a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer. Lives right here in Orlando, and he's on the Orlando Dreamers team, pushing it forward. He has maintained strong connections, as you might imagine, with Major League Baseball, and has a close relationship with the current commissioner of Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred. Rob Manfred is opening to expanding the Major League Baseball teams. All right. So he's going to add probably 2 teams or so in the near future. And he has openly criticized, or at least stated, that he understands that Tropicana Field is subpar. It's not good for the Major League Baseball brand, and that the city of Tampa needs to do something to get the Tampa Bay Rays into an actual facility worth an MLB franchise. Did you know Orlando is the largest market in the United States without a Major League Baseball team? Let that sink in. There's a lot of major cities out there. Orlando has grown so much over the years, guys. We are a major city and a major player here in the United States. We need a baseball team, and we need other sports franchises here as well. The Rays are constantly in talks with the city of Tampa, and they're trying to make things happen. But the Rays are also in talks with the city of Orlando. Obviously, if you have these business moguls like John Morgan pledging tons of money, I mean, it's just something that is a real opportunity. And there's a lot of speculation that the Rays don't want to leave Tampa and that they're just using us for Orlando. They're just using us as leverage against the city of Tampa to force them to get their act together to say, hey, look, we got Orlando right up the street. It's your little brother now pretty much being your big brother, and we're about to move over there. But hey, even if we don't steal the Rays from Tampa, yeah, steal, right? Good pun. If we don't steal the Rays from Tampa, we may get one of those expansion teams. Now, listen, you already know that I think Orlando is the best city in the United States. And adding a Major League Baseball franchise and a state-of-the-art baseball/sports complex right there in iDrive, completing Pat Williams' vision, would just make us even more of the best city in the United States, attract even more tourists here, bring more tourist dollars, insulate our economy even more from downturns. We have no state income tax here. We're only 1 hour from the beach. We got the second largest cruising terminal right there in Cape Canaveral. Got UCF, the biggest university in the country, right here. We got all the tech. We got all the Space Coast and SpaceX and Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin and NASA. I mean, the list goes on. And if you want to stay here in Orlando and plant your roots and buy a home or sell your home or move here, think of me and my real estate services. Again, I'm Phil Kruse. That's Kruse with a K. Follow me on all my social media platforms, especially on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You know where to find me. Make sure if you're watching here on LinkedIn to hit the bell below or subscribe on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you're listening to, and turn on your notifications so you get notified every single time I release a new episode. And always know that your best life in Orlando is within reach. Keep embracing every moment. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Cheers. Have a great day.